Hello friends, I'm George, the nice medic gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. Today I'm going to talk about the brand of Paris Corner, one of the most famous Middle Eastern fragrance houses, and like many other houses from that part of the world, they're mainly focused on doing inspired by type of scents. Up until recently I didn't have that many scents from the Paris Corner fragrance house in my collection, but in the past few months I've added quite a few, and today I'm going to show you all Paris Corner scents that I have in my collection, and I have a total of 16 scents to show you. The first two scents that I'm going to show you in this video today come from the Reaut line of fragrances and actually come from Pandora scents. Now, Paris Corner have a few sort of, I don't know how to call them, like a line of fragrances or sub-brands. One of them is Pandora scents. They also have an Autobiography series of fragrances, but I'm going to refer to all of them as being Paris Corner because they come from that fragrance house. And the first two are from the Reaut line of fragrances and Pandora scents. On one hand I have Mysterious Tobacco, and on the other hand I have Reaut Tobacco Vanil. When it comes to Mysterious Tobacco, this is a fragrance that's very heavily inspired by Carolina Herrera's Mystery Tobacco. You get a very sweet tobacco-based fragrance that has some more sweetness from a vanilla note. You have some spiciness. It's a very interesting, tobacco-based fragrance that's quite close to the original scent that it's inspired by, and also has pretty decent performance. And I actually have been a pretty big fan of Mysterious Tobacco, one of the best alternatives for mystery tobacco from Carolina Herrera. On the other hand, I have Reaut Tobacco Vanil. As you can probably guess, this one is inspired by Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanil. It's more like an inspiration, not like a direct competitor to that fragrance, because this feels a little bit more bitter. It feels like the tobacco note that has been used, the tobacco leaf note that has been used in here feels a little bit rougher, a little bit more masculine. It has a stronger cinnamon note as well compared to the original fragrance, but the quality here is pretty good, performance is pretty good, and this is one of those fragrances that I'm not a huge fan when I talk about the scent on itself, but actually this is a great fragrance for layering. If you have some vanilla-based fragrances or ambery-based fragrances in your collection, you can layer them with Reaut Tobacco Vanil, and the end result will be really nice. Both of them, though, as a scents, have very good quality. Both of them offer pretty decent performance, and both of them are pretty cheap. The next one that I'm going to talk about in this video today has been one of the sort of disappointments when it comes to the house of Paris Corner. The fragrance is called Vul Elegante, and this one has been inspired by none other than Xerjoff Naxos. One of my all-time most favorite niche fragrance, Naxos. I absolutely love the original scent, and I had really high hopes for Vul Elegante, but it turned out to be a very different scent from what I expected. It has less sweetness compared to the original fragrance, has less freshness than the original fragrance, less smoothness than the original fragrance, which is to be expected, but again it doesn't feel very close to the original. It feels more like a distant type of inspiration. This feels more aromatic, more spicy compared to the original one, and because of the lack of the sweetness compared to Naxos, this is where it misses the marks for me, at least personally. As a scent on its own, it's not a bad scent. It has very decent performance, a very decent projection, a little bit more expensive but still pretty cheap compared to the original fragrance, and again on its own has a good quality, just not as good as I expected it to be, or as close as I expected it to be to Naxos. The next fragrance that I'm going to talk about is from the Emir line, and it's called Celestial. It comes in this interesting looking bottle and interesting looking cap, and this fragrance is one of the first inspirations of Ganymede that came to the markets and actually became famous, probably the first one out of the Middle East that got some attention. Pretty similar to the original fragrance. I've said this many times before, but I've never been a huge fan of Ganymede. But this as a scent and as a sort of an inspired by type of scent, it's actually very close to the original fragrance. And to this day, in my opinion, this remains the closest thing scent-wise that you can get to Ganymede from what I've tried. good performance, good projection, again a little bit more expensive than some of their other scents, and all around a very decent alternative to Ganymede. Next one that I'm going to talk about is called Milano Prevail, and this one is inspired by a very good and unfortunately discontinued designer scent that's a member of the 1 million line, and the original one is called 1 million Prevail. And Milano Prevail from Pandora Scents and Paris Corner actually does a very good job as being an inspired by type of scent. Very similar to the original fragrance. You get a bit of the 1 million DNA that's mixed up with a nice amount of sweet tobacco, you know, notes that really makes this one stand out compared to all the other fragrances in the 1 million line. Definitely this is the most sort of an interesting, the original was one of the, if not the most interesting member of the 1 million line, because it was so different to all the other ones. Still relies on a lot of the sweet notes, but the addition of the tobacco note really made that one special and interesting. And Milano Prevail from Paris Corner really recreates that feeling of the original fragrance very nicely. The next one is one of the newest Paris Corner scents that I added to my collection, and it's called Noir d'Arabie, and this fragrance is very heavily inspired by Montal's Arabian Tonka. Unlike what you may think by looking at the bottle, this is not an inspiration of a Mancera fragrance. This is an inspiration of a Montal fragrance, which is at the end of the day the same thing, because those two companies are actually owned by the same guy. Scent-wise, pretty similar to the original fragrance, feels a little bit more spicy, a little bit more aromatic, and slightly fresher take on the DNA of Arabian Tonka. Lacks a bit of the sweetness in my opinion, but other than that, this is pretty decent. And if you can layer this with something that has lots of ambery sweetness, for example, you can actually get super close to Arabian Tonka. The next one that I'm going to talk about and quickly show you is called Frenetic Delicious, and this one is again from Emir line of fragrances and Paris Corner. And this is a fragrance that's heavily inspired by Dior's Private Fef Delicious. Pretty similar to the original fragrance, you get that very gourmand, very sweet, slightly dark type of a scent in here. Has just a hint of freshness in the opening. The dry down is very sweet, as I said, very gourmand. You get a cacao note, a vanilla note, a tonka bean note, pretty much you know, a praline note. Pretty much every sweet note that you can think of is mixed in here. Very unisex scent that's again pretty dark, great for cold weather, especially for nighttime usage in my opinion. Very strong performance. You get a magnetic cap all around, a really nice offering from Paris Corner and the Emir line of fragrances. Next one is one of the newest additions, Paris Corner additions to my collection. I just got this week actually. It's called Veteran Oud, and this one is inspired by Armani's Stronger With You Oud, and actually it feels very similar to the original fragrance. Feels like a very good inspiration. You get that very sweet, very famous sweet DNA of the Stronger With You line that has a bit of an added agar oud note somewhere in the background. It's very designer level, not animalic or skanky at all. It's not very strong, very easy to wear. Also has a bit of leather on the dry down, but again a very interesting sort of one twist on the original Armani's Stronger With You DNA. Pretty similar to the original, at least so far from what I've tried, and I'm still testing the performance of this one, but again the quality seems to be very high, the price seems to be quite low, and the resemblance between this and the original seems to be pretty strong. The next one is again a fragrance that I've just recently, just a few days ago, added to my collection from Paris Corner and Emir, and it's called When Soul Gets High. A very tacky name for a fragrance that is very similar to something like Back to Black from Kilian. Pretty similar to the original fragrance, again another very sweet scent that actually a little bit reminds me of what I just showed you a few minutes ago, you know, being Frenetic Delicious from Emir. Pretty similar to that one, although this feels a little bit fresher, not as dark, still though very sweet. A lot of sweetness here, again amber, vanilla, there's a cacao note in here, sort of a dark chocolate vibe out of it. Very gourmand, very sweet scent that again is perfectly unisex. Again, I think works great in cold weather and really will work great in cold weather nights. I'm still testing the performance of this one. So far seems to be quite a strong fragrance, and also the quality seems to be pretty high. The next one that I'm going to talk about is actually inspired by one of my most favorite all-time scents. The original is called Dior Homme Intense, and the inspiration from Paris Corner is called Club Intense Homme. And this is a very decent sort of an inspiration type of fragrance compared to the original Dior Homme Intense. Feels super powdery, super makeupy, just like with the original. Maybe lacks a bit of the quality and the strength of that powdery iris note that the original fragrance. This feels a little bit more floral. In my opinion here, the violet note is a little bit stronger compared to the original fragrance, giving it a little bit of a floral edge. On the dry down, doesn't feel as musky as the original and as woodsy as the original, but still pretty similar, especially in the air. I'm still testing this one out when it comes to performance, but so far seems to have pretty decent performance, again pretty decent quality, and again another very cheap and affordable fragrance. The next one is a part of the Nordstock line of fragrances, which is something like a high-end line of fragrances from Paris Corner, and it's called Dew, or Two, as it's translated. And this one is heavily inspired by Parfums de Marly's Layton. I absolutely love the Layton DNA. I have quite a few Layton inspirations in my collection, and this is one of the highest quality Layton inspirations. It feels a bit of a twist in the opening, doesn't feel like a straight up copy of the original scent. This feels a little bit more spicy, a little bit greener in the opening, a little bit harsher and sort of sharper compared to Layton, but on the dry down it's very similar to the original fragrance. Performance wise, pretty similar to the original as well. Very high quality. It comes really nicely, luxuriously and impressively packaged and presented, and all around has a very good quality. The next three that I'm going to show you all come from the same line, which is called the Autobiography line, and the first one is called Salty Breeze. All of them come in the same bottle design like this one, but with different color accents on the bottle themselves. This one is an inspiration of a Jo Malone fragrance that I've never tried, unfortunately, but I can tell you that I really like this one. It's a very fresh, very refreshing aquatic type of scent that at the same time has quite a lot of ambery sweetness. There's a seaweed note in here, some saltiness, aquatic saltiness. Feels very light in the air, very delicate and sophisticated scent that feels almost perfectly unisex and works absolutely fantastic in warm weather, in hot weather. Performance, I'm still testing this one out. Performance seems to be very decent, but again, I absolutely love the scent of this. And the only problem that I have with this fragrance is the fact that it only comes in a 65 ml bottle size. The next one, again from the Autobiography line, it's called Citron Vanil, and this one is inspired by Chanel's Allure Homme Edition Blanche. And actually it's a very nice and easy to wear fragrance. Very citrusy, very fresh, very refreshing scent. It has lots of lemon, bergamot. There's some spiciness here, a bit of pepperness, some sweetness on the dry down. I get vanillic and ambery sweetness. It feels a bit woodsy on the dry down, kind of has a soapy vibe, especially on the dry down. A very masculine, very fresh, very light and super easy to wear fragrance that works absolutely fantastic in warm weather. I've been testing this one out lately. Performance is a little bit above average, nothing spectacular as you would expect with this type of scent profile, but the quality is really nice and I really love the scent profile of this one. And the last fragrance from the Autobiography line that I have in my collection and that I'm going to show you today is called Supreme Gold, and this one is very heavily inspired by Parfums de Marly's Reaut. I really love the original fragrance, so one of my most favorite Parfums de Marly scents, and Supreme Gold is actually very similar to that one. Feels a little bit different in the opening, feels a little bit fresher in the opening, and has like a tiny boozy vibe in the opening of this one that is different compared to the original, but on the dry down actually gets very close and also seems to have a very nice quality. Again, I got this one just a few days ago, so I'm still testing the performance in here. So far seems to be pretty decent, definitely above average, but the quality, again, like with all the other members of the Autobiography line, seems to be really nice. And because I love the original scent so much, I am also quite liking so far Supreme Gold from the Autobiography line. The next one that I'm going to show you is called Reaut, and this is inspired by YSL Baby Cat. You get very similar scent profile to the original fragrance. You get that very sweet and at the same time quite dark vanilla based scent that has some incense, has a suede leather note. It's a really interesting scent. I really like this one. Feels to my nose a little bit sweeter compared to the original scent. And the quality here is very good and performance also is very good, especially after some maceration. This has turned into a really nice scent in my opinion. Perfectly unisex, quite close to the original fragrance, and all around offers really good quality for the price. pretty cheap, again, like almost any other fragrance that I showed you in this video today, and all around a very good alternative for something like YSL Baby Cat. And the last one that I'm going to show you out of my collection, and probably my most favorite Paris Corner scent at the moment, is called Cahier. This one is supposedly very heavily inspired by Imperial Valley from Giza, and I absolutely love the scent profile in here. It's a very interesting and unique scent. Very fruity, slightly fresh in the opening, on the dry down, very sweet from an amber note, quite leathery as well. There's an agar oud note in here that adds quite an interesting character to this one. Also feels kind of green. Very interesting mix of all the notes. A really unique scent, something that I've never smelled before. I absolutely love it. I know it's not a safe blind buy. I know that a lot of people actually not end up liking this one, but I absolutely love it. The leather note in here that's mixed in with the sweet fruits, the freshness and the sweet amber note really makes this one stand out, in my opinion. Really good scent. Performance is very good. I've been really impressed by the performance of this fragrance. Also, it projects very loudly. It's again very inexpensive, like almost any other scents that I showed you. And at the end of the day, as I said, this is probably my most favorite Paris Corner fragrance. The last fragrance featured in today's video, Cahier. And so guys, in today's video I showed you all 16 Paris Corner fragrances that I currently have in my collection. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next one. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.